The Lost Campers. We dressed, whispering. Then we crept out quietly so as not to awaken the gang in the other tent and in the trailer, picked up the outboard motor and our fishing tackle, and hurried up the lakeshore toward Eagle Eye's rowboat. At the edge of the woods, we stopped to take stock. Fishing tackle, live minnows for bait, which we'd kept in the live box at the end of the dock and now had in a minnow pail. The little 14-pound motor, which Dragonfly was carrying by the rubber grip on its steering handle, and a can of gasoline because the motor ran out of gas about every hour. Yes, we had everything we needed. Our life preservers were already tied on, good and tight. Pretty soon we were there. I climbed into the boat first, taking the motor with me. I went back to the stern and sat down and began to attach it. While I was tightening the thumb screw button, Poetry unlocked the boat. Dragonfly arranged the tackle boxes and the minnows so we could each reach for an extra minnow without having to stretch too far. In a jiffy, we were ready. We shoved off and floated out until we were out far enough for the motor to run without its propeller getting tangled up with the sandy bottom. I felt proud to think I could start the motor all by myself. I was glad there wasn't anybody older there to tell me how to do it when I already knew how. When a boy knows how to do something, he almost gets mad inside when somebody older than he is starts to explain things and tell him just exactly how to do it. Although you can't expect all the parents in the world to know that. First, I opened the air vent screw. It's funny how many adjustments there are on this engine that they don't have on the engines nowadays. Listen to all this. First, I opened the air vent screw and the gasoline shutoff valve, then coiled the starter rope around the starting disc, moved the mixture level over to number 4 on the dial, and did what I was supposed to do to the carburetor float pin. Boy, those were the days, huh? I don't think I ever had anything with that kind of adjustment. There was already plenty of gasoline in the tank, so I was ready, quick as a flash. Quick as a flash, I pulled the starter rope, and just as quick, the motor started and we were off. Putty sizzle out onto the lake. I made a few adjustments, which I'd learned how to make, and throttled the motor down to what is called trolling speed, which is very slow, with the motor barely running and the boat barely creeping over the water. Maybe Old Northern is on this side of the neck today, I thought. The water was very quiet on this side. I sat there with my left hand on the rubber grip on the steering wheel, feeling important, feeling happy, and feeling as if something was going to happen. Poetry had his line in the water, letting it trail along about 50 feet behind the boat. And with a sinker heavy enough to keep the bait just as close to the bottom of the lake as possible without catching the weeds that grew down there. I didn't even put my line in the water because I wanted to run the boat. Dragonfly sat in the prow and kept his line out too. All of us felt fine. The weather was just a little chilly, as it is in the early morning up there. I steered along the shoreline, following the long neck of land down toward its point, staying about 20 or 30 feet out from the bulrushes growing near the shore. The water was very quiet, and every now and then we could see a splash at the edge of the weeds where a bass was probably getting his breakfast. In the east, the big round sun stuck its face out from under the earth where it had been buried all night, wiggled its head through a couple of reddish-pink clouds, and started off on its day's work. Look, Dragonfly said all of a sudden. Poetry and I looked just in time to see a great blue heron with wings as long as a boy start flying from the shore out across the lake. I tell you, I felt good. I also felt sorry for all the people in the world who ought to take a vacation and couldn't afford it. And I thought that all those people in the world who could afford a rest like the one we were having and didn't take it were just plumb crazy. Santa says that even Jesus told his disciples to come away and rest a while, and he himself would go out into the mountains or somewhere where he could be alone with the Heavenly Father and get his soul rested. I made up my mind that when I grew up, I'd take my boys, or let them go alone, to some camp where there was real Bible training. And I'd teach them to love the great big out of doors which God made for us to enjoy. I didn't have time to think long, though. Not much longer than it took that big, blue, awkward bird to gallop across the corner of the sky to another shore. For suddenly, Dragonfly got what is called a strike, which means that a fish somewhere down in the lake was hungry and had made a headfirst dive straight towards his hook and got caught. Right away, Dragonfly's eyes were wider open than ever, and he was pulling in a fish. It wasn't much of a fish, though, just about 15 inches long, a walleyed pike. I thought 15 inches wasn't bad. But he put it on a stringer without my even stopping the motor, and we put it along with Poetry looking kind of sober. "What do you bet I get my big northern?" he asked. "You won't," I said. And just then his pole went down against the side of the boat with a whack. His reel started to sing fiercely, and Poetry's eyes looked the way Dragonfly's had. Something had grabbed his line. I've got him," he stammered, and it looked as if he had. "You out, buddy?" Boy, I don't get very far. He is on a mission to go to sleep. I guess that's a good thing. Boy, I wish I could fall. Sometimes I can, but not very often. All right. Right at the start of this page. Have a good night, everyone. Love you all.